It's back to armour, folks, in this video, which has been sponsored by Wondrium. More of that later. Now, those of you who've been following the armour project will know that I took my armour back to the workshop for a day of trying to sort stuff out, and we got a fair bit sorted out, but there was still quite a bit of work to do. And then I had a week before Tewkesbury, the reenactment that I was preparing all this armour for. It was my goal. I had to get a wearable suit of armour, and you would think, wouldn't you, that a week must surely be enough time to sort out all the little extra bits and bobs. Now, obviously, I wasn't working on it absolutely full time. I still had the rest of my life to lead, but I thought, a week surely must be enough time to sort out all the laces and the painting on the inside and some of the leather work and the straps and all the various bits and bobs that I had to do. Well, how did I do? I had a very trying week trying to sort out the armour, and here's how it went. After getting it all home from the armoury, the first task was to oil the armour. This took about an hour.
Bill or Ted fell here.
Here we have the Mark II rarer braces. These were finished in the workshop last Monday, and these are to replace these, the older rarer braces, which you see are only demi-rarer braces. They only cover the outside half of the upper arm, whereas these are fully enclosed and are quite a bit heavier. I have to say, it's quite noticeable how much heavier these are. Not necessarily saving in weight, because you need mail to cover the gap here. And although it did make me get out my expensive gadget, because I thought, it's a chance to use my expensive gadget. It's a precisely made steel thing with a digital readout for measuring the thickness of metal. And yep, the second time I've ever come to use it, and the digital thing is dead. Just doesn't tell you a thing. But going by eye, it's about the same thickness of metal, I think. There's just a fair bit more metal. Anyway, I say finished in the workshop, but there's still a bit of work to be done. For a kick-off, you'll notice that the leather is sort of white. Well, it was gleaming white, actually, in the leather while it was being cut and shaped. But by the time the understandably filthy hands of an armourer had riveted it into position, it's quite a bit off-white. But anyway, doesn't really matter, because it's to be dyed oxblood. That's this colour, so it'll match the rest of the harness. This one's got a sort of suedey, rough surface rather than the smooth surface here, but it'll match well enough. These bits of leather don't show much anyway. And I've found it rather difficult to get hold of oxblood leather dye, but I'm hoping that in time for Tewkesbury I'll have some, and then I'll have to dye the leather whilst it's actually in situ on the armour, riveted to the armour, which is not ideal, but there you go. Needs must. This leather was dyed in advance, and then when it was nice and dry and oxbloody, riveted into position. The other thing is, to prevent rust, painting the inside black. See, the inside of this has been painted black. It's very thin, a very thin coat of very smooth paint, so I'm guessing that that's been sprayed on. I think it's acrylic paint, so I know it's not brilliantly authentic, but needs must. I've got to get on with this, so I've just bought some modern acrylic paint, which I'm going to brush on in the authentic manner, partly because, of course, I don't have much space to get in there with a rattle can, because it's a fully enclosed rarer brace. And so these will go, that one's that side. Yeah, it's not immediately obvious to a squire, an ignorant squire, someone who's trying to help me, which side is which. So with white paint, I think I'm going to paint a little R and L, just to help my squire, you understand, my squire. I won't be confused. No, I would never be confused. But my squire might need some help.
Here you see the proud rivets on the old demi-rarer braces, while here you see, or do you, the rivets on the new rarer braces, which are so beautifully flush that they are difficult to detect.
Now, these are made of what they call carbon steel. Not a very good name for it, really, because all steel has some amount of carbon in it. But anyway, people tend to call it carbon steel, as distinct from mild steel, which also has some carbon in it. But never mind. Mild steel is cheaper. The actual material, if you want to buy today a sheet of mild steel, it's cheaper, so it makes a difference when making a suit of armour. But another thing is that mild steel can be worked cold much more readily, whereas for complicated curves and the like, you need to heat this stuff up, which slows things down, and of course you add fuel costs. And the price of propane has gone hurtling through the roof, but not as much as the price of just sheet steel. My armourer was complaining about how much the prices have leapt up thanks to the shortages during the pandemic. Shortages so great that in fact for a lot of the pandemic you might think, oh well, it won't affect him very much, he can just get on with making armour in his workshop. But no, for a lot of the pandemic he was twiddling his annoyed thumbs because he couldn't get hold of the right sort of sheet steel for love nor money. But anyway, carbon steel rusts, something rotten you, and you just have to sort of look at it. In fact, just getting this back from the workshop, it's already started to rust a bit on the inside. Now I've oiled the outside, but because I'm going to be painting the inside, I haven't oiled that, nor have I de-rusted it, because I think actually the rust when it's covered in acrylic paint will just perhaps bind the acrylic paint better to the surface, and that should be fine. But I do wonder about the utility of a thin coating of acrylic paint on the inside. You'll notice that this one is fairly black on the inside, but its fellow is all scuffed up. And why is that then? Is it because it was abraded away? And one thing that will abrade is if you wear mail underneath armour, that mail scrapes on the inside of the plates above it, and you get this effect. You see, this is the breastplate, the fold on the bottom of the breastplate, you see is where the skirt rubbed against it. And that's just from me standing around in a workshop. That's not me running about and fighting. No, that's just me doing not all that much, wearing the armour, and the mail has scraped loads of the paint off. And so why is this paint scraped off here? Because I haven't been wearing mail under this. Well, I'm fairly sure it's because I put this inside that when it was being transported, and presumably this rubbed against the inside of that, and that's what's caused that. So it doesn't take much to take this paint off, but well, here goes, let's put some on anyway. I'm going to touch up the paintwork on the inside of all these as well. Not really sure whether that's going to do a huge amount of good, but it seems wise to do the inside of the gauntlets before I sew in the gloves, because I won't get another chance. And the gloves will add, will be some padding, so there shouldn't be too much scrapage, although of course since they're articulated gauntlets there's going to be some. I don't know. Now I've just been told that the 3-in-1 oil that I've put all over these, it takes about an hour to oil this armour, rots leather, and that I should be using something else, possibly olive oil, although I think that would knock the shine down a bit. Rots leather! I know! Why didn't no one mention that to me before? Huh.
And now all my cannons of vambrace have got left and right clearly marked for my squires, and I do hope that they appreciate a good serif. I didn't do the elbow cops, the couters, because they're symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which arm they go on.
I've managed to get some leather dye, the right shade, oxblood, thanks to Leprevo Leathers of Newcastle, who incidentally used to be based in Blackfriars, which featured in my last video. Anyway, I've read the instructions, which are printed in incredibly small writing on the side. They clearly expect you to use a magnifying glass, and it's very clear that I have to use this in a very well ventilated area, which is not this studio, so I'm going outside. I'm reasonably confident that the white-ish leather on the new Mark II vambraces, the upper cannons, will dye nicely and should match. The yellow leather, which appears on the lower cannons of vambrace, I'm less confident about, but I'm going to try anyway. Right, now to open the dye, which looks very red. This looks very red. Okay. Right, there's nothing very clever you do with this. You just sort of daub it on. I'm going to try with this separate strap first. It does look very red, doesn't it? But maybe it'll dry more brown. I don't know if it'll stay in the metal, but I'll give it a quick wipe now in case it does. Now for the white leather. Definitely looks very red to me, this oxblood. Next day on the armour, and I have dyed the leathers using the oxblood dye. And why did I pick Oxblood. Well, I asked my armourer for chestnut brown when he asked me what colour leather I would like, and he said, well, there isn't a colour called chestnut brown in the leather dye range, but there's one that's called Oxblood, which is pretty much what you're asking for. So I said, okay, well, let it be Oxblood then. And the leathers that he gave me were this lovely colour, which was pretty much what I wanted. So great, the colour of conkers. Only it's not Oxblood, because this is Oxblood, which is what I ordered from the leather shop, and it's it's a shade of red, it's not a shade of brown. The leather that started off yellow has come out a much more similar colour, and quite a nice colour, and indeed it's a nice red, but it's just not a red that matches the rest. Now it occurred to me that an answer to the puzzle might have been that he started with this stuff, which is veg tan leather. You see what colour it is, a sort of an orangey tan, and this is what authentic leather looks like. It's not been dyed, but has been tanned in the authentic way. That's what it looks like. So I got a little piece of that and dyed it, and no, it's still red. So this dye is just the wrong dye. I suppose I could now try to go back to the leather shop and find another dye which is the correct dye, but then I would be dyeing on top of this quite dark red, so presumably it would come out quite a bit darker than I wanted, as well as perhaps a bit redder. So for the moment, that's it. I'm just going to call this done for now. It'll just have to do. These are not the most prominent things anyway, and I've still got the helmet and the gauntlets and the skirt and the standard, the collar to do. So I've really got rather a lot on my plate. So for the moment, this is going to have to do. Oh, by the way, while I think of it, I got another, cheaper this time, measuring device, and according to this only goes to 1 decimal place, whereas this, back in the days when it worked, that one time, went I think to 3, possibly unnecessary, decimal places. Anyway, according to this, these are 1.2 millimeters thick and these are 1.4 millimeters thick. And so that would explain the difference in weight. Right, really, nothing in this project is proving easy. Now on to the laces. Now you may remember that I'd got a lot of these. Their proper name is points. They are very strong pieces of cord, and at each end there is an aglet, a cone of brass, which is held on with a rivet. And the trouble is that these, that were made by a specialist company, very well, they're very strong, they wouldn't work with my armour because they wouldn't go through the holes, because the aglets with their stout rivets on them wouldn't go through the holes. They were too big. I just thought, oh, what are the chances of that? By the way, there are some late medieval pieces of armour with these brass insets in the holes, which of course make the holes slightly smaller. So it is not necessarily inauthentic that they are on my armour. Anyway, so I thought, oh, never mind, I'll just buy some more. So I contacted this company and they said, sorry, that we don't do aglets and rivets in any smaller size. Really? Okay, right. Never mind, so I went to a different company and they sent me some sample aglets. I tried them out. They went through, no bother at all. I thought, okay, great. Yes, that size of aglet, please. Great, give me 2 dozen. And these were made up and they cost 60 quid. And you might think, 60 quid for some laces? But don't forget, these are handmade laces. And I don't just mean that she cut them to length and added the aglets. No, she actually made up the length of them, plaiting them strand by strand of the lucette. It's a lot of work. So really, £60 is quite reasonable. And they went through the armour and I thought, great, job done. That's at least, phew, one thing out of the way. Until, that is, I tried to thread one of these through my doublet and then through the armour, and I threaded in this end and pulled it through, and I just thought, okay, well, it goes through, no bother at all, but actually I was just testing it. I didn't want it in that particular hole, so I carried on pulling, and oh, there was no aglet on this end. And then I found an aglet on the floor, and it had just come off, but there was no sort of pop, heave moment at the end. I felt no resistance. It was just, I had no aglet on the end, and there it was. And so then I looked at them again and I saw, there are no rivets in them. There's nothing holding them on the end, save perhaps the crimping of the pointy end on the last strands. And so I inspected them all, and there are no rivets in any of them. And I got in contact with the maker, and she insisted there really are rivets, that they are. And so I dug in here and found a tiny rivet, which was U-shaped, suggesting that it had been bent that way when I pulled the lace through the hole. So now what do? She said that she could make up another lot and that I could get them from her at Tewkesbury and I could exchange them for these. But of course they'll have to be thinner, so they won't be quite as strong. But I do find it bizarre. I mean, this company does nothing but make these things for this market, the market that I am part of. And similarly, this company does, this large part of her business is making these. And this company makes a very large number of these doublets, certainly many hundreds, and I would have thought thousands of them. And they have their standard size of hole. And my armourer, who's been doing it for many years, uses this size of hole. So how is it that even the smaller ones are still too big to go through the... When will something be simple? And you might say, well, these rivets are just clearly too weak, I mean, how strong are these rivets? Well, I'll tell you how strong these rivets. When my armourer was trying to get my armour on the first time, he couldn't get these through the holes easily, so he just grabbed them with pliers and squashed them flat and bent them at angles, and in at least one case, where is it now? Of course, now I'm trying to refer to it, it's disappeared, even though I had it in position ready to show to you. But there you go. He pulled so hard that the aglet actually snapped in two, but still the rivets held. So these rivets are definitely very strong. They're stronger than the aglets and the cord, it seems. Whereas these just came off instantly with, as I say, no resistance that I even noticed as I was pulling it through cloth. Surely, something in this project will turn out to be simple. New levels of excitement now, ladies and gentlemen, as you watch me open this box, which has just arrived from my armourer, which should contain my augmented sabatons. Now, my initial idea that I put to him was to make a second set of sabatons that were really, really pointy, so I could then make a video about how difficult it is to run in sabatons or run in really pointy sabatons, because some sabatons, particularly Gothic ones, got really, really farcically pointy. But anyway, he decided that the way to go was to take the existing sabatons and convert them. So let's see what we got. Well, my boots that I left with him are still in them, and let's see what we got here. Well, lovely and shiny. Look at that. So there you go. So there's a sabaton made to fit this particular boot, and it's got that along the front and then along the back to keep it together. And it's got a clip here made out of sprung metal, which should... I've never actually used this clip. There you go. I think you just pull, and then that hinges, and then you can get your foot out. Right, and oh, brilliant! He's done one for the other foot as well. Right, well, I'm just itching to try these out with greaves. Here they are on my feet. So now there's much less of a gap. In fact, there's no gap at all with the left sabaton, unless I point my foot out in front like that and then one opens up. But if I just stand up normally, there's no gap at all with the left one. There is a little bit of a gap on the right side, and I can see why sabaton boots normally have the laces at the side, because as you move around there's a definite scissoring threat to those laces there, but I'm going to have to live with that for the moment. Right, they are very heavy and clumpy. Just listen to this. That's just sabatons and greaves, nothing else, making all that noise. Now, of course, that was me walking normally. I could try to be stealthy like this. Yeah, but you're not going to be creeping up on people wearing sabatons. So if stealth is your aim, leave your sabatons at home. Now the greave is on the outside of the sabaton to the left and right, but it's inside the sabaton at the back. And the back of the greave, you can see,
comes up much higher than it really needs to at the back. You might think it overlaps with the bottom of the greave by quite a bit, but if I lean forward, have at thee, then a gap opens up at the bottom of the greave, but that gap is covered by the rise at the back of the sabaton. So I imagine that's why they have such high backs, so that when you're in a forward aggressive stance, no gap appears. So there you go. Sabatons. Marvellous.
While at the leatherworking shop, to make yet another trip feel more worthwhile, I bought some leather stamps, and I thought I'd quickly try one out on the ends of the cooter straps. You wet the leather, then give it a whack with the stamp. Not too bad. While I was doing that, I noticed that the holes were in rather radically different places on the two cooters, but I own a hole punch, so I could just add a few more holes. Easy. You'd think, wouldn't you, but the size of hole I wanted to punch just wouldn't punch. I have the footage, and it is 9 minutes of a man trying to get a tool to work, heaving and wrenching and trying to remain civil while talking to a camera.
Well, I've dented it.
It would be cruelty to all of us to show you it all. Eventually, I swapped to a different size of hole, and it worked easily first time.
Ancient Egypt! Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to startle you over much by saying ancient Egypt like that at you. But ancient Egypt comes to mind because I've been watching some of the Great Courses Plus. No, Wondrium stuff. Well, they changed their name. You see, they used to be called the Great Courses Plus, but now they're called Wondrium. Why Wondrium? Well, because it's quicker. Only it's not really quicker. If every time I tell you that their name is now Wondrium, I also have to say that they used to be called the Great Courses Plus. So I wouldn't say it's exactly a massive step forward yet, but one day they will have the confidence, I'm sure, just to call themselves Wondrium. And not mention the fact that they were formerly the Great Courses Plus. Now, anyway, ancient Egypt. Yes, so it's called the guided tour of ancient Egypt, and it's a very long course. It's one of the many courses. Possibly I should say Wondrium. It's a big website with loads and loads of academic courses in video form that you can watch at your leisure. And you can take a free trial, have a look at a load of them, and then if you like to, you can then pay a monthly subscription, and you have unlimited access to the whole place. Anyway, one of the courses was this guided tour of ancient Egypt, and what an amazing find! This is the woman. That's her. And so she's the lecturer, and the gestures that this woman uses are absolutely amazing. She uses so many with such speed and fluidity. Now the footage I'm about to show you is just taken from about 4 or 5 minutes or something of one of the lectures, and I just almost a random sample. And look what I got! Look at my haul. Okay, so. She starts off in a version of the finger prison, and there's a bit of an interlace there. So then we've got a prow with pulses, and then she goes into a Merkel. And now this is quite unusual. She goes single arm, but her offhand, she's got the politician's thumb. Now, normally, the politician's thumb is used with the dominant hand. It's actually a gesture I don't like very much and wouldn't recommend. But she's holding back the politician's thumb with the offhand, like a sort of threat. It's there. She's not going to use it if she doesn't have to, but it's there all the time. This politician's thumb as she gestures with the other hand. Anyway, I thought that was a rather interesting technique. It's definitely quite rare. So back to a finger prison again. Or was that a handshake? It was something in between. Sometimes it looks a bit like a tiptoe as well with her. Tiptoe, finger prison, handshake. She sort of mixes and matches those. Anyway, here we go. So we got the front cage into, I think she was going for an interlace there, but she mucked it up. Anyway, this is later. And so we got the interlace, and she turns with the finger prison. That's good technique, I like that. And now, this is pretty amazing. She goes, Merkel front cage, and just as she says the words
sanctify the king,
that's when she hits the apex, but only for a tiny fraction of a second, and she's away from it again, which is interesting, quite subtle technique. I think if you weren't watching carefully, you might have missed the apex cradle completely. And another finger prison there, another term of the finger prison. Now then, watch this. She goes beseech really rapidly into a 6-gun and then pulses the 6-gun at the camera in a sort of bang, bang, bang sort of a way. And then she doesn't actually go into a Merkel. She just drops the 6-gun and relaxes it. So it looks like a Merkel. It looks like she's being conciliatory and peaceable, but she's just gone bang, bang, bang. And okay, is that declaring victory? I don't know. It's sort of there is now peace after my triple pulsed 6-gun. Yes, so and that's just from a few minutes of footage. So there you go. One to watch there. And if you want to watch it, you could go to wondrium.com/Lindybeige, or better still, click the link in the description, and that'll take you to details of a free trial. And during the trial period, you can have unlimited use of the site, go around, see what you like, and if you like it, perhaps you'll become a subscriber. So there you go. Wondrium, my sponsor.
Though, actually, I'd say that the important thing here isn't that I once made some quite nice models of ancient Egypt. No, it's these cradles. Look at these cradles.
Now, the next thing is the standard, the collar, the male collar that goes either under or over the breastplate. It can be worn sometimes over, but also under is good, and for me, particularly good because, one, I like the look of my breastplate, but also I don't want it going chunk, chunk, chunk noisily on the top of the breastplate, but mainly it protects me from my own breastplate because the top edges of the breastplate rest very uncomfortably on my collarbones. And if I have the standard underneath, between my collarbones and the breastplate, this is good. Now, when I talked about this problem to a Facebook group, a lot of people said, well, actually, you should have the straps on the breastplate on the inside, not on the outside, and they should be the same width as the iron that they're attached to. So that way you never get the corners of the iron breastplate pushing into you at all. I did see the logic of that, but anyway, I don't have that sort of strap. So I'm going to go with a male standard, which also protects the gap just between the top of the pauldron and the neck, and of course the neck underneath my helmet, which is not brilliantly well protected because I'm not going to be wearing a bevel or a gorget. Now, unfortunately, if you go by body weight, I am roughly 1/5 neck, and the bit that stands up at the top of this standard is only like that, and it's just inadequate, frankly. So I need the top of this standard to be a bit taller. So I need to add mail to the edges, and so I've bought from the very nice people at Capapi, or Capapier, if you want to sound French. And from them a load of loose links for adding to mail. I've also bought from them this pair of pliers, and seeing it in a video, Sebastian from Iron Skin in Germany took pity on me and sent me for free these pliers, which he thought I might get on better with. And I can see how I might, because they've got much shorter nose, so it gives him much better leverage, and it's quite small and good for getting into the small areas. But on the other hand, this one has got a bit of reach to it. It can reach around over some links. So I think maybe some of the time I'll be getting on better with this, and some of the time with this. I'll try them both and we'll report. So I have to extend the standard, and then I have to work out a way to attach it to me. Now, Capwell's book says that in this period most have one buckle, but some have two. My armourer definitely recommended two. I think two is probably a pretty good idea to keep things neat. And one around the top standing bit of the collar, and then one lower down to stop the rest flopping about. How do I attach these to the mail? Don't know. They've got quite a large hole for the rivet. These buckles were originally created for the sabatons, but now the sabatons have got a spring clip instead of a strap. I could presumably put the buckle on the edge of the mail and then have the strap with quite a lot of overlapping mail the other way, and maybe it'll all concertina together and that will work. Don't know. The rivet is, if I go with that size of hole, it's far too big to pass through this mail, so I'm going to have to come up with something, I don't know, a washer or something to make it possible to hold everything together. Anyway, that's all ahead of me. Now let's go for some linking fun. And one. Just a few more to go now. But the riveter works. Many minutes I have now been at work for, and I'm trying to do the second link.
So here on the right you can see my first successful link. Hooray, I thought. It took me quite a while, but I'll speed up. And here you see the wreckage of the link. Both of the holes have now burst on different sides. And you can also see 3 wrecked rivets that have all not done the job. That one there is what the rivet looks like before you put it through the into the mincer. And I've wrecked 3 rivets, and that's taken a lot of. This is going to take a long time.
You find me now after about an hour and a half of just riveting fun. After the first 3 rivets, which took me flipping ages, I then started my cooker timer. I put half an hour on the clock, and it went peep after I'd done another 12 rivets. So each riveted link is holding on another solid link, which possibly for this period might not be the most realistic and typical for mail, because some people will tell you that they went back to using all riveted mail in this particular period. But anyway, it's quicker, maybe it's quicker, so I'm doing it. So that would be 48 rings per hour, 24 rivets per hour. And then I carried on after that. I think I got a little bit faster than that, but not much. I've got from there to there. So not even halfway round the standard. So let's say another hour to get to the other end. And then if I do that again and then put just 1 row of brass round the edge, I was going to do 2, but let's imagine I just do 1. So that's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least another 5 hours of work just to put the links in. Then I've got to work out how to put the buckles on, and then I've got to sew in some soft leather around the inside of the collar to help it stand up better and make it a bit more comfortable. And I'm starting to have a bit of a crash in morale. I really thought that a week's work would get this armour ready, and now I'm beginning to wonder if I'm going to make it, with the helmet and the gauntlet and the skirt still to do. And I was hoping to do a few other things, but those are the must-dos. I've been using almost all the time this because it flops, you see, so that means I can use it in one hand, whereas this one is very, very stiff and it needs 2 hands to open it. So that's no good, because I need to use this in one hand whilst I'm holding together a little rivet, and everything's very springy metal in this hand. I can't spare the hand. I've tried working it like this to loosen it. I've tried oiling it. That hasn't worked. I'll give it a bash on the cobbler's last with a hammer and a bit and see if that loosens it. But for the moment, this one's doing fine. There's been a high failure rate. 3 links here failed completely. At least one of those was definitely my fault. 2 I've rejected out of hand because they lack the holes for the rivet. And I've also got quite a large pile here of sort of rejects, in that one or both of the holes is not complete. So I don't have confidence in those. One of the failures was when I went ahead with one of those and it failed. So I've lost confidence in those, and that's quite a high reject rate. My neck has definitely suffered because you're working like this with your head bent over it all the time. I can't really think of how else to sit. If I sit back like this, then every time I drop something, it's just going to fall on the floor. I need to be leaning over the table so it falls onto that. This fluffy cloth really isn't helping, because every time I pick up a rivet or something small, I get a bit of fluff with it, and that really doesn't help.
Right, so I've been adding links along here, and that's as far as I've got. I've now rigged the camera to look down from above in a fair bit of close-up, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to see what's going on. Do bear in mind that my head is much further away from my work than it would ideally be, because there's a camera in the way. So I take one ring and I open it and I inspect it, and I find this one is good. Very often one of the holes is incomplete and it has to be rejected. So I then find the right place, thread through the first ring, that's always easy, then through the second, that's usually a little bit more difficult, but not too bad this time. Then check that I've got this ring the right way round, and I'm going through it the right way, and ho! That went through very quickly and easily. Normally that takes much longer. I'm really wrestling with it. Then I pinch those 2 bits together, and they spring apart immediately, but they're close enough together now that I can hold them, I can pinch them together with my thumbnail. Now I get one of these tiny rivets, and here's a tricky bit. I got to find that with my fat fingers, I've got to poke that tiny rivet through both holes whilst hanging on to the whole thing with my other hand. And if my left hand slips, what tends to happen is the springiness causes the rivet to go ping way, and then it's somewhere in the room. Okay, so now holding it in position with the left hand, I then got to get a deft grip on either end of the rivet with the jaws of the pliers. I think I've done it. Now I've got to work the rivet into the hollows in the jaws of the plier, and I'm almost there, I think. There we go. I then check, yes, that it's definitely the rivet going through both layers, and then I squeeze tight. Once I'm in the right position, the squeezing tight bit is actually quite quick and easy. And there you go, I have riveted one link.
And did you see what I did wrong? I forgot to add the new solid ring.
Now I have got to this stage with the standard. Now, when you are trying to make something and make a video about the making of the thing, everything takes 3 times as long. So I don't have much time, so I just got on with it without the camera. Sorry about that. But anyway, I've now got a line of what are called latin. That's these brass effect links around the edge on the real thing. Some of them were actually solid gold, purely for decoration. And I got a lot faster, by the way, at riveting. After doing a few rows, I gave myself another half hour and timed myself. And in that half hour, I did 22 rivets, which is a great deal of an advance over 12 rivets. So I continued to get quite a bit faster, which is good news. I then had to attach the buckle and the strap. Notice I've just put one buckle and one strap. It took me well over an hour just to drill 3 holes in some brass. Downstairs I have some little bits of sheet metal brass. I've been saving them for just this occasion for many years in a box. Oh, brilliant. Okay, I'll use those. Okay. I'll do nothing. Just come on. After a while, I'd put a little sort of divot in the surface of the metal. What the hell? Is this the hardest piece of brass known to humanity? I then tried a different drill bit that was brand new. I thought maybe the first one's just a blunt drill bit, but I found another drill bit that was brand new. Come on! Tiny little specks of brassy powder appeared, but pretty much nothing else. Come on! I tried heating it up over my stove, thinking that'll soften it. Didn't make any difference whatsoever. And then my drill got really slow and the battery had drained. And of course I've only got one battery, so I put that on to charge, but I got a hand drill, so I tried the hand drill. It's not a very good hand drill. Didn't get any further with that. But then I remembered, I bought a job lot of tools, and I'll have a look in that, because I think there was a drill, and there was a big, really industrial strength drill. Oh yeah, plug straight into the wall, none of this battery nonsense. Okay, say your prayers, piece of brass. Nothing, just come on! And the drill bit is being pushed slowly up into the drill. I put it on a wooden block. The metal is now getting so hot that it's scorching the wooden block. And I didn't see any flames, I admit, but quite a lot of smoke is coming off this. Come on! And then eventually, yes, it went through and into the wooden block, which then, of course, immediately started spinning violently on the end of the drill. Oh, I'm going to break the drill bit. Phew, I didn't. Something didn't go wrong. Anyway, knowing that the metal would be far too hot to touch, I then looked at, there are no pliers, because all the pliers are up here now, but I found some nippers, and ping, ding, and then it was somewhere in the room. But eventually I found it. And then I had to drill 2 more holes, because I thought, well, I'm going to need 3. And then, of course, I realised, I'm going to need 6. I'm going to need 6 of these for 2 buckles and 2 straps. 3, it's just going to be 3. Okay, so peening, I've managed to find 2 nails that seem to be the right size. And I put them through, and then you get this onto a cobbler's last, and you then try to peen the end of the nail. And the first thing you'll do is you'll clip it with a pair of clippers to length, and I didn't want to clip it too short, so I suppose I did clip it a little bit too long the first time. Anyway, it turns out when you're trying to peen something through an ever-shifting bed of male rings that themselves are deforming and moving all over the place, It's really difficult. And because it has to go through the thickness of the mail, it has to be really quite a long stem. So as you peen away, you're almost bound to bend the stem, which I did quite spectacularly on first attempt. But I only had 2 nails that were exactly the right size. So I couldn't go to another nail. So I then had to find a metalworking vise, get that out. And with a hammer and the metalworking vise, I managed to straighten it up enough. And then I clipped it down a little bit more, and I've peened it on. And I've peened on the strap. Have I put them in the right place? Have I done a good job? I don't know. But anyway, I've got to get on. I've got to add the leatherwork, I've got to stitch that on. And then I've got to do the skirt. And I've still got the gauntlets and helmet to do. And will I do the plume? I was going to do a plume. But I don't think... plume, low priority now, frankly. Right, got to get on.
These links I rejected for having insufficient holes. These are links that failed during manufacture, and these are ones where the holes were incomplete, and so I rejected them.
One problem that I've not yet got a solution for is how to put on the standard, the mail collar, the pauldrons and the breastplate. The breastplates have a strap that comes over the shoulder here. The pauldrons have points that lace from these holes here to holes up by the collar of the doublet. So you need to be able to get access to those holes in the doublet in order to put the pauldron in the right place, get it to lace up nicely. But then the standard has got to go underneath the pauldron and underneath the breastplate. So if you put the standard on first, it's almost impossible to lace on the pauldron, but if you put the pauldron on first, it's almost impossible to get the standard on. Yeah, that's a problem which awaits a solution. There is something that Dave Hewitt, my armourer, asked me to clarify. In an earlier video, I said that I ordered my armour and then 4 years later got the last of the plates. That is sort of true, but, let me explain. I ordered it in February of this year. I should do it around your way, shouldn't I? So I ordered it in February of this year and then didn't get the armour in the rest of that year, nor in the next year, nor in the next year, but I got it in the next year. So looking at the last 2 digits of the dates, that's 4 years, so I said 4 years. Looking more closely, I see that I'd ordered it in February and I got the last of the plates in January. So if you counted it in weeks, that's more like 3 years. So perhaps 3 years is a fairer thing to say. But there's more to it than that, because though I ordered it in February, he didn't start work on it until September, because he got an order in from the Royal Armoury at Leeds, and that's like getting an order from the Queen, right? It's the Royal Armoury at Leeds, and as a more valued customer, he thought that should jump the queue. So he got in contact with me, he said, I've got this other order come in, it's going to jump the queue, you're going to have to wait, is that all right? And well, what was I to say? I mean, I can hardly put myself ahead of Her Majesty. So I said, yes, okay, I'll wait. I wasn't in that much of a hurry anyway, so 4 years is true, 3 years is true, and 2.5 years is also true. So you pick the truth which you think is fairest. Now, something I knew about throughout this time, but I never mentioned, was that Dave's health was in significant decline, which I'm sure added to the delays. I was never going to mention this because I saw it as a very personal and private matter and no business of mine to be making public. But last time I saw him, Dave made it clear that he thought that you ought to know. Hello. Well, I didn't think I would video the sewing of the leather onto the standard, because you've seen a man sew before. How can that be interesting? Well, I have now been sewing for 28 minutes and I have done 3 stitches. Threading the needle with the thick thread. I tried to thread Glover's needles, specialist leather needles, and that was hopeless. So I then went to Saddler's needles, which are blunt. But I was expecting to have to use an awl anyway, so I'd bought an awl specially. And I made bigger and bigger and bigger holes with the awl, and yeah, it's almost impossible to pull 2 thicknesses of thread and the needle through the hole. So I now think that the awl is not the way to go, so I came here to get my hole punch. Wish me luck. At least 2, call it 2.5 hours, something like that, of sewing has got me to this stage. So I've now got a rectangular strip. It's a straight rectangle. It might not look like a straight rectangle because the mail that it's attached to is in an arc like that. But the idea is that it bends around into a perfect tube for the standing part that goes round my neck. Have I done a good job? Nah, not really, no. The awl proved to be useless and a waste of money, so I went back to my hole puncher and just chuk, and trying to measure out where the holes should go to fit with the mail was just pointless. I just gave up with that and just went tuck, 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 and just put a load of holes in, and then found some hole in the mail somewhere. I've got a flap of leather there which is unsewn because there's also a flap of excess mail. I don't know how much excess mail I've got. I was never able to sort that out, so my squire will have to just buckle this and deal with the overlap as best he can. The worst thing about this, though, this is quite comfy. This is the soft side of the leather on the inside, but and I think the leather is stiff enough to hold the collar up, so that's good. But no, it's the rucking. Can you see that it rucks up, particularly there? And that's going to be uncomfortable. Can I think of a fix for that? Yes, unfortunately the fix is taking everything off and sewing it on again. Although what exactly you do to stop it rucking like that, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not having fun.
I'll spare you the whole of the sad sight of a man struggling for 10 minutes to don a tight but heavy skirt that wanted to slip down and bind his knees together, then add the back and breast in an effort to work out how much of the skirt he could remove while still protecting his genitals. I wanted to work out where a very broad cloth belt, narrower at the top, could go, from which the lightest possible skirt could hang. I wanted to minimise the amount of mail under the plate. In summary, I did not do well.
Oh, I'm very tired and at this point really fed up. Ow. Ow! It's the evening before I have to go. This is a rectangle I've marked out that's 3 inches over the top there, 8-inch swathe, and you've got darts. One there which will be on the side, that one there will be in the centre of the back, and that one there which will be on the right hand side. So 3 darts, and I make it curve that way? Is that how you curve a belt? Oh, I wish I knew what I was doing. Please don't be too shocked, but what I've done is I've just attached some foam rubber to the inside of the helmet, held in place with double-sided sticky tape, and that'll have to do for now. Who looks on the inside of a helmet anyway? My luggage for Tewkesbury. This is a shoulder bag. It has in it my gauntlets, which I'm going to try to sew in the train on the way down, and my doublet, which I'm going to add some padding to, so work to do on the train on the way down. And there's my beige jacket over a very large, it's on wheels case. In that are my creases and vambraces and rarer braces, and a cloak and points and various other stuff. In this, which is a Brompton bicycle carrier, which is very big and heavy, there is the back and breast, the helmet, and in the helmet is the standard and the mail skirt, so lots of mail, that's a big heavy lump. The pauldrons are in there, and the tassets, and the sabatons. That is, yes, that's really heavy. And then I've got on my back, I've got this great big rucksack, which has in it my tent and my sleeping bag and my soft kit and that sort of stuff.